See this nature moving when the player walks through it? Looks nice, right? Yeah, so this tiny detail almost killed our entire game. The idea was simple, make nature react to the player and enemies so the world feels alive. Easy, right? Hell no. We had no idea what we were doing, we were just starting with shaders and barely understood anything. So of course we did what every developer does. We went on the internet and copied someone smarter than us. We found this guy, Artificial, who shared this Foliage shader. Perfect, problem solved, right? Nope. Turns out his solution worked perfectly with one tiny little problem. It didn't work in our version of Unity. He was using an older version of Unity, while our version was 3 years newer. So of course everything was broken. So at that point we had two options, give up or somehow fix it ourselves. Well, there was actually a third option, pay someone to do it for us. But yeah, we had no money and no time, so we chose to give up. Yeah, that's end of the video. Oh, just kidding. Of course, I decided to fix it, which ended up taking half a year of my life. So first I did what every developer does. I stared at code and hoped I would magically understand it. Spoiler, I didn't. After a month of reading, debugging and asking myself what the hell this thing even does, I realized I still had no idea. So I went back to the tutorial and the documentation, but there was nothing. But then I found something better. The comments. Absolute goldmine. One guy literally explained everything he did to make it work. I was hyped. I tried it and it did work. But then I followed one specific tip. Opening the project in older Unity version and copying the missing files into the new one. At first I thought that was complete nonsense, but after that and after a few days of working with ChatGPT, I finally got something working. And I was so happy. I didn't build the game for 2 months. Yeah, great idea. Then my team comes in like,
hey, can you build it so we can test it?
And I was like,
yeah, sure, I'll send it right away.
Boom, build done. Time to test. And instantly I'm like, wait, where did all the foliage go? So I walked through it and yeah, it was still interactive but completely useless. That moment honestly felt terrible. Realizing that 2 months ago I thought I had fixed it and it just wasn't true. So I immediately asked you guys for help, and you actually gave a lot of great suggestions, but none of them worked. Stuff like,
maybe the shader isn't included in the build,
or
maybe it's a player velocity issue.
No. So I decided to go deeper. Line by line, I started reverse engineering the whole system, trying to understand what this thing even doing. And yeah, I learned a lot, but the worst part, everything looked correct. There was no obvious reason why it shouldn't work. So I thought the problem must be somewhere else, probably in the shaders. So I opened the shader graph and started going through it by node, and then I found something weird. There was a node that I literally couldn't add back after deleting it. After some googling, I found out it got replaced by another node. Texture size was replaced by texture size. So I stopped it, tested in the editor. It looked a bit different, but I still tried to build the game, and still broken. I'm not going to bore you with everything I tried, but after hours and days of struggling, I finally figured out. Turns out, the problem was the resolution. When I used a fixed resolution in the shader, it only worked for sprites that match it. Everything else kind of worked, but looked wrong, so I needed a way for each sprite to use its own resolution. And then, completely by accident, I found it. I decided to print out the shader parameters, basically all the material data for each sprite, and that's when I saw it. The correct values were already there, they're just weren't being used. Instead, everything was using one global method. I'm sitting there like, why? What I'm missing? And that hit me, Unity optimization. So yeah, Unity optimization can actually break your game. In this case, it was SRP Batching. Later, I even found a note in the official documentation saying that some shaders might not work correctly because of this optimization. Great, thanks Unity. So I followed their advice and tried to disable it, which meant rewriting my shader from shader graph into a classic shader and adding a special variable outside of the SRP system. That should disable it, but Unity had another trick. Unity had another optimization where it removes unused variables. So I had to trick it. I added the variable into the color calculation, even though it adds 0. So visually nothing changes, but technically it forces Unity to keep it. After that, it finally worked. Now some of you might say,
why not just use a script with material property block and awake?
Yeah, I could have, but that would mean adding a script to every single object, and I really didn't want to do that, so that's why. And yeah, that's it, the shader is finally fixed, 6 months later, totally worth it. And since I'm nice guy, I'm giving 2 for free. I even built a small tool that lets you convert shader graph into non-SRP batching version with single click, so you can work on your shader like normal shader graph, and when you are done, just hit export without SRP Batcher. Easy. I also added inspector settings so you can tweak everything exactly how you want. Huge shout out to this guy. Without him, this effect probably wouldn't exist. Now, I'm curious, have you ever run into something like this? Let me know in the comments how you solve it. And yeah, that's it from me. See you soon.